What is up, you guys? It's your favorite cutie, Mel, back again on my soapbox channel to give you guys yet another video. And today we're back again for All About Love by Bell Hooks. Today we're going to be reading chapter 7, which is titled Greed. This chapter really snatched my edges a little bit. It definitely made me think about a lot of the choices that I made, a lot of the things that I've done wrong, a lot of I definitely just have learned a lot just from reading this passage. So I'm super excited to share it with you guys. If you guys like this content, please give it a thumbs up and share it wherever you can so that I can grow this channel and that this message can hopefully inspire other people to buy the book and just encourage other people to live by a better love ethic. Okay, so let's hop into chapter 7, which is Greed. Simply love. The fading away of greed and hatred is the foundation for liberation. Liberation is the sure heart's release, an understanding of truth so powerful that there is no turning back from it, by Sharon Salzberg. Okay, so I'm just going to just go because I highlighted so much stuff. I'm not even sure I'll be able to share every single thing that I highlighted for this chapter because it's a lot. So I'm going to mostly just share these passages and hop in when I can to hopefully get through everything in less than 22 minutes. All right. Isolation and loneliness are essential causes of depression and despair. Yet they are the outcome of life in a culture where things matter more than people. Materialism creates a world of narcissism in which the focus of life is solely on acquisition and consumption. Greed and exploitation become the norm when the ethic of domination prevails. Intense spiritual and emotional lack in our lives is the perfect breeding ground for material greed and overconsumption. While emotional needs are difficult and often impossible to satisfy, material desires are easy to fulfill. So, goodness, I see this so much in the world that we live in today. It's all about, how many trips can we go on? Like, how many designer items can we acquire? How much can we flex? How much can we show that we're living in our rich era? Like, I've been a part of this. I've felt this. I've seen this. I see it every day. And if you guys are being honest, I'm pretty sure that you guys have felt compelled sometimes to participate in like flex culture. And I just think that it's so true that a lot of us in this society like mask our unhappiness by acquiring things, and like it's all about acquiring. And I remember watching a video about I think it was on the School of Greatness, where this guy, he's the money guru, he talked about greed. And I feel like this book kind of brings that whole concept back around, because it's like so much of greed is just draining the life force out of all of us. Because the truth is, if we were able to just live simply, and we can simply stop seeing all of the ads all the time for people telling us we need to buy this, we need to buy that, if we could just be happy with what we have and content with what we have and make what we have work, I think we would all be a lot happier. Because the thing about greed is it never stops. You can never have enough. So it's like a never ending gimme. And I don't feel like what we really want is those things. What we really want and what we really crave is connection. And I think a lot of us want things because maybe we think subconsciously that these things will make other people want to connect with us deep down. So it's not even the things that we want, I don't think. I think what we really want is freedom. We want love, we want connection, and we want happiness and contentment in our lives. So let's keep going. Nowadays, we live in a world where poor teenagers are willing to maim and murder for a pair of tennis shoes or a designer coat. This is not a consequence of poverty. While it was common for individuals to steal or attack someone in the interest of acquiring resources, money, food, or something as simple as a winter coat to ward off the cold, there was no value system in place that made a life less important than a material desire for an inessential object. So we've heard about this, There's been many occasions over the years, maybe not so recently, but I've definitely heard of people getting killed over tennis shoes. Like people, being trampled on a Black Friday to acquire items for a cheaper price. Like this whole notion of things being more important than people, things being more important than the life that's next to you. And it's really sad because it's just like, it's so wrong, but I would definitely be lying to say that it has become normalized. At least here in America, it's very normal for people to care about things more than people. It's in everyday culture. It's just there at every turn. So okay, so let's keep going. So then she goes on to start talking about how in the early 70s, like there was this whole movement, like the hippie movement, where people were really like into love and connection and community, and how when the war in Vietnam happened and all of the jobs started to boom, because in America we had to like produce things, I guess, at that time. So that's when everything became more industrialized, and people started to kind of move away from the whole peace love movement and fighting for rights and equality and just love and all of those things, and started to kind of move towards a more like, let me work for money so that I can be comfortable. She says, a great feeling of despair gripped our nation when leaders who had struggles for peace, justice, and love were assassinated. So then she's just talking about, like Martin Luther King. So many of the people that we can think of who were leaders in the love space have been assassinated, which is really crazy when you really think about it. Psychologically, we were in despair even as economic booms opened up jobs for women and men and previously disenfranchised groups. Instead of looking for peace, justice in the public world, individuals turned to their private lives, seeking a place of solace and escape. Initially, a lot of folks turned inward to family and relationships to find again a sense of connection and stability. Coming face to face with rampant lovelessness in the home created an overwhelming sense of cultural brokenheartedness. So then she goes on to start to talk about how, like, when the economic boom kind of started happening and people were moving out of that love space, and now women and brown people of color were able to kind of get jobs and start supporting themselves, it came less about trying to fight for values of love and more about just getting by and being comfortable and being able to get luxuries when you can, which I feel like is still kind of the case. Like, in our world, definitely everybody is not rich, but I feel like most people are just doing what they can to make sure that they have a comfortable place to sleep at night and be able to afford a trip here and there or some luxuries here and there when you can. So it seems like now, but then she's talking about how people, instead of it being like a focus on a communal kind of vibe, people started to turn more to like their friends and their family mostly. So like just building a home and a family. Then she talks about how even that really wasn't safe because of patriarchal values. It wasn't safe for women, it wasn't safe for kids. There was more child abuse, more domestic violence and stuff like that. So it just wasn't a safe space. She talks about that for a bit. The good life was no longer found in community and connection. It was to be found in accumulation and fulfillment of hedonistic material desires. And keeping with this shift in values from a people-oriented to a thing-oriented society, the rich and famous, particularly movie stars and singers, began to be seen as the only relevant cultural icons. Gone were the visionary political leaders and activists. Suddenly, it was no longer important to bring an ethical dimension to the work life. Making money was the goal, and by whatever means. I think this still applies today. and I think it's even more rampant now with social media. It's all about like being an influencer or being invited to the biggest events, whatever. Like those are the people that people look up to. It's not so much, I don't know that many people that people look up to like Beyonce. I don't know a spiritual leader that's like equivalent to Beyonce or equivalent to Kim Kardashian. Do you? Let me know down in the comments if you guys know someone who's as famous as a Kylie Jenner or whoever. Like, you know, the big Drake. Um, it's absolutely true. Like, I feel like celebrities and like pop culture is the focus. It's not really a huge focus for people to move like morally correct. It's not as popular. Like, you know, sure, I think it's wonderful that there's more podcasts popping up, because in a way I feel like that allows normal people to have conversations and to, you know, learn more about just other things besides being invested in like celebrity culture. But I think that is true. I think that there's not that we don't have like a Martin Luther King, or we don't have a Gandhi of today. Do you guys know anybody? If you know anybody and I'm wrong, just let me know down below. But who do you know who's praised on the equivalence of like a Beyonce, or like the biggest celebrity that you know? I don't know. All right. To many people, our nation's acceptance of corruption as the new order of the day began with unprecedented exposure of presidential dishonesty and lack of ethical and moral behavior in the White House. This coincides neatly with the decline of the influence of institutionalized religion, which had previously provided moral guidance. Interesting. The worship of money became more evident in the unprecedented increase of street drug industry. Okay, so now she talks about, so I think she started off talking about how you could see the corruption starting off like with the government officials and things like that, when there started to be tons of scandals with the government and how, you know, they do all these secret operations that most of us in the main public, unless you're really looking for it, we don't know about. You know, all the war crimes that are committed and things like that. And in general, there's just a distrust for the government. And then she talks about how it trickles down on a lower level, like even in poverty, how people started to kind of take on these capitalistic views and try to get ahead by, you know, the drug industry, like being able to sell whatever kind of drugs and hopefully become rich. So it said, quick money, often large amounts made from drug sales, allowed the poor to satisfy the same material longings as the rich. And then she shares an example. Imagine a mother living in poverty who has taught her children the difference between right and wrong, who's taught them the values of being honest because she wants to provide them with a moral and ethical universe, who suddenly accepts a child selling drugs because it brings into the home financial resources for both necessary and unnecessary expenses. Her ethical values are eroded by the intensity of longing and lack. But she no longer sees herself as living at odds with consumer culture she lives in. She has become connected, one with the culture of consumption and driven by its demands. She has found it makes life easier when she hardens her heart and turns her attention toward more attainable goals, acquiring shelter, food, making ends meet, and finding ways to satisfy little desires for material luxuries. I think this is everything in music. At least as an African American woman, this is all that we hear in music is, you know, F love and, you know, let's get to the bag. And I'm guilty of loving these music, and I've definitely taken on that approach before, because in love, as she will share in the next passage, like a lot of us have a hard time finding real love because it's not always accessible, because everyone is just kind of driven by like, what can I get? Everyone's driven by greed, because it's hard not to be. It's hard not to be when it's all in our face, when it's always advertised to us, when consumerism, when we're always finding new things to buy to satisfy ourselves in some way that's going to be temporary. It's hard, you know, everywhere we go, literally, there are ads. You need this, you need that. So then the next thing that I highlighted, it says millions of, she's found it easier, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, let's move on. Millions of our nation's citizens are addicted to alcohol, legal and illegal drugs. In poor communities where addiction is the norm, there is no culture of recovery. Addicts want release from pain. They are not thinking about love. Addiction makes love impossible. Most addicts are primarily concerned with acquiring and using their drug, whether it be alcohol, and I don't want to be demonetized, so I'm not going to say all these things, but basically anything that you could think of, and shopping. Hence, addiction is both a consequence of widespread lovelessness and a cause. Only the drug is sacred to an addict. Relationships of intimacy and closeness are destroyed as an addict, as the addicted individual participates in the greedy search of satisfaction. Because it is unending, the desire is ongoing and can never be fully satisfied. So, oh my gosh, I'm going to share this. And I'm not going to share when this relationship was, but I was once in a relationship with someone who I quickly started to notice that they had some addictions going on. And it literally started to tear the relationship apart, at least for me. Because as I started to become more aware about my emotional state, and probably why I even connected with this person on this level in the first place, as I started to become more aware of how I was feeling and started to get rid of my addictions, whether that was food. I talked about this on my channel, if you guys want to look, but addicted to eating unhealthy foods, addicted to smoking too much, addicted to doing whatever I could to just make myself temporarily feel better from the fact that I was so unhappy, completely in despair, and just trying to distract myself in any way possible. And if I would have stayed in the lifestyle that I was in, maybe I would have never stopped, or I wouldn't have stopped as long as I was in that life, because as long as I was unhappy, I was always trying to, instead of making changes, I was distracting myself with things that were numbing my pain, numbing my dissatisfaction, numbing my lack of self-love, my lack of care about what I was eating, what I was doing, who I was spending my time with, what kind of environments I was in, you know what I'm saying? So I just feel like I've experienced this, and I see how it can tear people apart, especially if one person decides to start to live a more sober lifestyle and another person that you're connecting with isn't. Because you start to be able to see in them, it's nothing's going to be able to satisfy that person in a way that allows them to be present with you, because it's always going to be about how can I acquire more of whatever it is that I'm using to numb the pain. I hope that makes sense. So that relationship ended, and I feel like it's largely because of that, because I was becoming aware of that. Even though I couldn't consciously put it into words like this, I felt this even though I couldn't put it into such pretty words. So let's see. All right, so now it talks about how we accept families as being dysfunctional. And I know that I've heard this plenty of times, oh, everybody's family is dysfunctional, everybody has that one uncle that does this, that, and third, everybody got that auntie who blah 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 blah. Definitely felt that. So let's go on. While domestic violence was highlighted and everyone agrees that it is not acceptable behavior, substance abuse was not. It was seen as a major factor that destroyed conditions needed for positive emotional interaction. Oh, it was not seen as a major factor that destroyed the conditions needed for a positive emotional interaction. And it is, you guys, it really is, because I'm not going to say it's just as bad. Maybe you're not physically harming someone else, but it is almost just as bad because you're harming yourself, one. And two, when you are not able to be sober-minded, when you're not able to be in a place of presence, when you're always seeking to get the next high, when you're always seeking to acquire that next thing that you feel like is going to make you feel better about yourself, whether you're trying to get a new car, a new place, move into a different side of the city, whatever it is that you're trying to do that you think is going to make you feel better about yourself, or going to make you have a one-up on the person next to you, if you can never just be present, you cannot have an intimate relationship with anyone. I remember being in that relationship I was just talking about and literally sharing with that person, because I had thought about, why am I not happy with this? What is it about this relationship that is not right? And I realized that I'm this person is never present. like, it started off that way, of course, because when you get in a relationship, like, you're excited, so it's like it's a new thing. Even that can be another high for you. It's like, oh, this is distracting me from my life, so this is great, you know. But then once you start to settle in, you know, you go back to being who you really are. So if you're always distracted, always not present, always searching for the next high, always making sure, trying to figure out how you can get the next best car, how you can get the next designer, how you can get, you're not able to really sit there and connect with another person, you know? It's very rare. So let's go on to the next thing. Let's see. Both men and women remain in dysfunctional, loveless relationships when it is materially opportune. Our prisons are full of people whose crimes were motivated by greed, usually by lust for money. We are all encouraged to believe that they are not like us. Yet studies show that many people are willing to lie to gain monetary advantage. Most people are tempted by longings to endlessly consume or to try to acquire wealth by any means. In recent years, public support of gambling, both in lotteries and casinos, has heightened the awareness that desire for money can be addictive. Most prisoners encountered... Oh, okay, I'm going to stop there. So, yeah, I have also participated in this dynamic. So, even in a whole other situation that I had been in, I was dating a guy who was very... he was doing very well materially. And half of the things that I put up from him, I put up with because of that. Like, just being honest. If it was any other guy where I was experiencing some of the things that I was experiencing with this person, I probably would have been gone, realistically. Like, I would have moved on. I would have definitely found someone else to entertain, or I would have just been on my own because, you know, and I don't want to say that it's all like that because there were good times, you know, but mostly I feel like the reason why I entertained and suffered through some of the things that I did, and even like allowed this person to come back into my life after I did separate myself multiple times, was because this person was well off. And I'm just being honest, I feel like I was enticed by the fact that it is possible for me to gain that wealth gain that wealth as well, like, you know. But overall, you know, I just wanted to share that because, just being transparent, I feel like a lot of us like to act like, oh no, like I wouldn't do this for the money, or we think that we're so above doing something. But if somebody was to offer you some type of opportunity that wasn't completely morally correct, but you know that off of maybe one or two interactions you'll be able to perhaps maybe pay your bills and pay off all your debt, everybody would be tempted, you know, especially in today's society where people are working so hard just to get by. It's very easy to be tempted by greed. So I just wanted to share that. All right. In the 7 Laws of Money, Michael Phillips calls attention to the fact that most of the prisoners he encountered incarcerated for stealing as they attempted to get rich quick. Significantly, the combination of lust for material wealth and desire for immediate satisfaction are the signs that this materialism has become addictive. Genuine love is rarely an emotional space where needs are instantly gratified. Okay, so this is a whole nother part that we're going into. So this is where she really dragged me to. So I'm just going to share these passages, and then I'm just going to be honest and tell you guys, you know, where I have saw these things come up in my own life and why I'm really happy I'm reading this. Okay, so genuine love is rarely an emotional space where needs are instantly gratified. Let's see. Dreaming that love will save us, solve all our problems, or provide a steady state of bliss or security only keeps us stuck in a wishful fantasy, undermining the real power of love, which is to transform us. So basically, she goes on to talk about how, you know, a lot of the reasons why maybe we're not having long-term relationships is because we're expecting to have our needs met all the time. And if they're not met, then we're tempted to look for someone else and go and do something else. And I feel like that was definitely the case in my last relationship. I felt like there were a couple things that I just was like, what? I'm not getting what I need. And if you're not going to give me what I need, I'm going to move on. And I felt like, while that's not the only reason why I left, because I felt like it also was a component of the whole addiction situation, I felt like I didn't understand that it's not this person's job. Not only is it not their job, but it's just like in most situations, someone else is not going to always be able to fulfill a need. And maybe I should have had a lot more patience and grace in that situation. And instead of deciding that, you know what, I'm just going to remove myself and look for something else, I should have had more grace in that situation, for sure. And I learned that. I did learn that. Even I reflected back on how I was acting, or just how I felt in that relationship, and I was just like, I see my parts in it, because it definitely takes two. Like, he had his things and the reasons why it didn't work out and how he contributed, and I also had mine. So I'm like, yeah, this definitely dragged me in. Going forward in relationships, I think that I definitely will be a lot more patient and not be so quick to get up and go and look for things in other people, because the truth is, nobody's going to be perfect, one. And two, you have to be patient with people, because it's really, real love is about transformation and having the patience to stick with someone as we both hopefully transform upwards and grow more in love and become better people, because real love is about supporting someone else in their journey. And that's what this whole book starts off about. It's about supporting someone else's spiritual ascension. And I do believe that you can do that even in short relationships, because I know that I gained a lot from the last relationship that I was in, and it wasn't even a super long relationship, but what I took from that changed me completely and was the catalyst for a lot of the changes that I've already started, like how I've eaten and just becoming more present in my everyday life, and not being someone who's going to try to numb myself with food and drugs and anything else. I didn't want to be that person. Okay, so let's go ahead. It's getting kind of long, so I'm just going to kind of skip forward because I've highlighted so much. Bottom line is, we can turn off the television set. We can show respect for love. To save our planet, we can stop thoughtless waste. We can recycle and support ecologically advanced survival strategies. All these gestures show a respect and a gratitude for life. When we value the delaying of gratification and take responsibility for our actions, we simplify our emotional universe. Living simply makes loving simple. The choice to live simply necessarily enhances our capacity to love. It is the way we learn to practice compassion, daily affirming our connection to the world community. So that was, honestly, I probably got the most out of that chapter than anything else that I've read in this book so far. Definitely needed to hear that. I definitely feel like I learned a lot from that, and I definitely, going forward, want to continue to use the things that I'm learning in my relationships with everyone going forward. Way more patience on my end, way more compassion, way more just being a better person. And just to end off this video, if you guys are interested, if you have the capacity and you want to support me in this channel and my creative endeavors, please go ahead and buy my handmade keychains and Be My Lover bracelets. You can also support for free by streaming my project Be My Lover, which will be down in the description. I also will have the link to this book down in the description, along with the one that we'll be reading next, which is 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty. So if you guys want to just go ahead and get that, so we can read together and kind of collect our thoughts, share our thoughts, let's do it. If you guys at any point feel like you guys want to share any personal stories, or you guys want to just share how any of these things have affected you in your personal life, or if you're connecting the dots, please go ahead and leave down in the comments below. I love talking to you guys and conversing with you guys in the comments. So as always, stay passionate, stay cute, and I will definitely see you guys in the next one for chapter 8. Mwah. Bye.